Um, First of all, good afternoon. I'd like to thank you all for joining our Resource Management Tool webinar for the life sciences industry. Today, Pharmica consultant Andy Grubb is going to walk us through a presentation and live demo and field any questions. So please feel free to use the GoToMeeting interface to ask questions at any time during the presentation, but there'll also be a time for Q&A afterwards. So with that, I will turn it over to Andy.
Thanks, Billy. Welcome, everybody. My name is Andy Grubb. I'm a consultant at Pharmica Consulting, and this is the Intrinsic Clinical Systems Insights webinar, where we're going to show you our resource management tool for bridging the gap between Excel and million-dollar solutions. So you've probably heard me say Intrinsic Clinical Systems and Pharmica Consulting. Who are these people? So there's two companies, but we have one vision. Pharmica Consulting has been around for about 12 years. They specialize in kind of life sciences consulting, mostly for pharmaceutical biotech companies. I've been with the company about 10 years now, and I've been on many projects with big and small pharma, a lot of resource management projects, which really led me to help with the other company, Intrinsic Clinical Systems. Over all this time, Pharmica has been repeatedly asked the same questions around clinical trials. You know, the resource management piece, the CTMS piece. We decided that there was space for our own offering, for our own marketed products. So that's where Intrinsic Clinical Systems comes in. That's the company that deals with the actual products that we've created, that we're selling, that we're going to see today. Pharmica is the consulting arm. There's a lot of crossover. I have experience with resource management. You know, I've helped inform the construction of the tool as well as giving these webinars, so that's why I'm involved in this piece. You know, so just a little background on me in terms of resource management. I used to be on a team of about 50 people at a top 5 pharma company where we, you know, had a monthly process that would take forever. It was a giant hassle to try and use, you know, a very expensive system for resource management. Many people didn't even want to use the system. They would just go off on their own and create spreadsheets like you see here, you know. So people were still using the Excel cut and paste, you know, macro solution for resource management, even though they had a very expensive solution at their fingertips to use. So, you know, there's the one end of the spectrum where you can kind of do it yourself, and you can use Excel for this. It's just a giant hassle. And then, of course, you know, the other end takes a team of people, $1 million solutions, right? These off-the-shelf products that are very difficult to use. They take a lot to program. It's a lot of work and time to put data in and get anything useful out of it. Again, it works. It's just takes a large team to get to work correctly. You know, so at Pharmica we saw, you know, here are the problems with what is currently available. So if you're big pharma, if you're one of these large companies, you know, the off-the-shelf solutions have just become more and more complex, and it takes a huge team, special coding skills, just to be able to get it to work right. And then, you know, once it works, you actually have to pull the data out and do more with it to even report on it. If you're more of a mid-sized company, you know, you probably still have a lot of those Excel files. You might have one of the bigger off-the-shelf tools, but neither solution really works that well. And then if you're a smaller company, small biotech maybe, you might have a lot of new people. It's expanded quickly. You might only have, you know, one trial or even one drug. You know, do you have any idea what everyone's doing? Do you actually have any resource management at all? So, you know, our solution kind of bridges the gap, the name of the webinar, right? It fits between these two ends. And here's kind of how it helps all these problems. So if you're big pharma, you can get the insight that you would get from one of those off-the-shelf, really expensive tools, but you're not paying millions of dollars. You don't need a team of 50. and you don't need someone to program it for you on a daily basis. If you're one of the mid-sized companies, you can really move out of managing spreadsheets to do your resource management, and you don't have to pay the millions of dollars. And if you're a smaller company, this might be your first real step into resource management. You can actually see where everyone is, what they're doing, and where you might need help. So the tool, I like to say that it's about answering questions. The big question is always, what's my demand? What am I going to need in the next 6, 12, 24 months? So the tool itself takes your book of business and runs it through the algorithms, again, your algorithms, inside of the system that we built. And very quickly and easily, you will see your projected demand over time by therapeutic area, by role that you're modeling. Whatever your data hierarchy is, we can filter and pivot by it. You can create very custom reports that show exactly what you want to see. And then the kind of follow-up question to that is always, do I have enough people to meet this demand? Again, you can assign all of your employees to tasks based on how much capacity they have. So you know the demand that you're projecting. I'm going to be doing this much work over these many months. Here are all my people. You can match the two of them up and see at a glance, where there are gaps, who has capacity, who doesn't, who might be over-allocated. You're answering all these questions right within the tool. So how does it work? There's kind of two sides of this that I'll describe here. This is a screenshot of the live tool. I will step through a demo of this in a minute. I just wanted to talk about the different pieces that you're going to see as I'm clicking around and talking, so you kind of understand exactly what it is you're seeing. It's pretty easy to get working here. So you can, first of all, you initialize it, right? This is the initial configuration, the initial setup. You put in your algorithms, the roles you want to model, the activities that you're going to model, some FTE numbers for what it takes to do that work. We have industry standard numbers that we can provide. You may have numbers yourself that you use internally. Either of those work. They're completely adjustable. But that's just part of the initialization of the tool. You set up your organization, the different hierarchies of your organization, departments, and roles, and cost centers, however you're organized. That all goes in here, kind of just the first step to configure it. Once it's initialized, you upload your data. So you have a book of business of some sort, whether it comes from Project Server or a different system maybe. It's just a listing of your studies and activities and when they start and end. And whatever the format of that is, we can work with it to get it to work with the tool. It can be a manual upload. That's the way that the demo you're going to see today is. It's just a simple CSV file upload. It can be automated. You can directly connect to Project Server or something else and pull in the data automatically. Once you have those two pieces, you have the settings configured. You have source data in there, right? Your book of business of some sort. The tool runs, and you just see your results on the screen. It automatically calculates your demand projection over, whatever the lifetime of your studies are in the book of business, and you see what you see here in the screenshot. You see all your demand. In this case, this is rolled up by role across, your entire organization. You of course have the ability to filter, to pivot, to kind of dig into the data a little bit more to get down to a more granular level for reporting. I'll show you all of that. It's very easy to click in and out of this data to get down to different levels. The other side of it is the capacity planning. So again, there are some configuration steps to get this ready to go. Really, at this point, the only thing you need to add are your employees. So a literal listing of all of your people goes right in the tool. And once that's done, and you have some data behind the scenes, you've already added a book of business, you can match up all of your people to tasks according to how much capacity they may have. So you can click into each of these cells and assign an actual study to someone that's doing a specific role. And you will then see how much of their capacity that takes. It's 100%, it's 75%, it's whatever the number is. And you can schedule this month over month into the future to make sure that all of the projected demand is covered by your employees. And again, you can filter and change the timeline and all of those kind of regular reporting type things. So at this point, I'm going to step into the tool itself and show you the live demo. So this is kind of the home screen for the tool. This is all built in Microsoft Azure, so it's all in the cloud. It's secured by Microsoft. All the databasing and programming lives on their servers. So, it's their systems that are handling the workload here. If you already have a Microsoft 365 account, it can most likely be federated to the system, so you don't have to log in with a different login address. You simply, connect to your regular Microsoft 365 account, and it logs in just fine. It is very quick. Microsoft, the servers behind the scene are very fast, so this can load a lot of data in a pretty short time. So this landing page, you can see there are a couple different domains here that I might choose from. In my demo organization, I'm gonna run through the clinical development version today. So as soon as I click into it, you can see it's loading data, it's loading projections, and there you go. That was 5 seconds, 6 seconds to load what I think are 74 studies worth of data in here. So right off the bat, you can see that you can get a projection number for all of your demand month over month. This is the entire organization. This is my entire book of business. If I hover over any of these bars, you can see what the breakdown is of the numbers. So this is the biometrics organization. Let me open up my key over here so you can see what I'm talking about. The orange is biometrics. The blue is ClinOps. If I click on that, it opens up a pop-up that shows me a breakdown of exactly where these numbers come from. So I can see exactly what the numbers sum up to for all of the different work that I'm talking about here. This is by organization. If I click up into the menu for filtering and pivoting, you can see all the different things that I can filter and pivot by. This is based on my kind of breakdown structure. So everything's tagged by therapeutic area, so I could filter by that. I could go by activity, the different activities we're modeling. I could filter by specific studies, by specific programs, or maybe I'm just going to change my pivot. So this is by organization. Let's look at it by department. So this is the exact same data, the exact same projection numbers, broken down by the different departments now that we're talking about. And I have one more that I can change to. I want to group by role. This is my preferred view. So this is all the different roles that we're modeling in the tool, the entire organization. And you can see them up here in the key. This is a pretty interesting graph. This is all of my projected demand out to September of 2020 for everything that I'm planning on doing. Now this kind of looks nice, but it's not necessarily anything that you can do anything with at such a high level. So let's filter a little bit. So instead of showing all of my book, let's show one study. So I'm going to unselect everything, and I'll pick this one. So I've just selected a single study now out of my book of business. And you can see I get a much kind of more actionable report. This tells me all the demand I'm going to need across all my different roles for the life of this study. And if I hover over any of the colors, I can see a specific breakdown of what we're talking about here. Half a CRA, 0.75 for a trial manager, and then all the other different roles. You can see a spike when we get to next June. So this is something that might be very interesting for study manager or project manager, someone kind of at a slightly higher level that's looking at this from a study perspective. But let's say I'm only interested in one role. So again, I'm going to filter just again this one study. Instead of showing all my roles, I'm just going to show the CRAs. So now we're talking about how many specific people I'm going to need for one role for one study. You can see I need half a CRA for pretty much the life of it, and then a little bit more towards the end. So this is something that is immediately actionable. I know that I can, if I have a couple studies that look like this, one CRA could basically cover two of them. So this is with just a couple clicks, I've gotten down to something very clean and easy to read that's projecting out for another year and a half. I can kind of walk backwards here. Instead of showing just one study, let me show all my studies, but for just the CRAs. So now I know how many CRAs I'm going to need in total across my entire organization for the next couple of years. You can see at the moment I only need 12 or 15, but pretty shortly I'm going to be in the mid-20s up to 30. And that's going to stretch for another year. So this is something that you can use for more medium-term planning as you need to flex your organization up or down based on what's coming down the pipeline. I showed you all the different filters and pivots up here. Pretty standard. Whatever is in your data structure, it can be filtered and pivoted. I can export an image, so I can kind of narrow this down to the view that I want to see for whoever I'm reporting to. Click the button. There's my exported image, just like that. Save it to my desktop somewhere. I can reset, just kind of go back to the top level. Pretty standard things that you would see in a report. There's a drop down over here where you can see a date. So this drop down controls which book of business I'm currently using. This is one from February. You can see that there's another one that has 5 missing studies. So it's the exact same book. I just took 5 studies out. You can see there's other months in here. So this is a selector where you just are picking the book that you're working off of. By default, it'll show you the most recent one, but you can at any point in time look at a snapshot from a different era. I can go back 6 months and look at another book. I can use this to kind of take a look at scenarios. So I have this other book of business where I took out 5 studies. I can pretty quickly load that up and get down to this same level, see the same report, my CRAs over the next 3 years, and see what the difference is. If I take out those 5 studies, what exactly am I doing to my organization? So it's a pretty powerful way where you can model some scenarios and take a look at them compared to your current book of business. So we've been talking about the book of business here for a little bit. Let me show you an example of the one. This is the one that's actually loaded in the tool right now. So this is just a simple CSV file, and you can see our current hierarchy, right? So everything has a therapeutic area, a program, and then a work item. This is a study. So these items here, which I'm highlighting, this is one study. So there's some program level work, which starts and has an end date, and then each of these other activities, early, late, and post submission, and then closeout, all fall under that same time range. But you have a start date and an end date for each of these, and these start and end dates are when the specific algorithms will fire based on the roles and based on the numbers that we're going to put in the tool. So I'll show you those numbers in a minute. But this is our source data. So you can, this might be thousands of lines long, depending on how big your portfolio is, how many studies you're currently modeling. And again, all these values can be whatever you have for your organization. Maybe you don't have a hierarchy where it's TA, program, study. Maybe you have department or cost center. Maybe it's just broken down a different way. Your activities can be named anything you want. Again, these are just what we're using for our demo. So this is your source data. You know, in a standard cycle, you might update this constantly, right? Start and end dates are always changing. Studies are always moving in and out of the portfolio. But maybe you only upload it to the tool, you know, the first of every month. So everyone always has data that is current as of whatever the last first of the month was. You know, the process can be whatever you would typically use. If you're automatically connected to the source, then it could be basically instant. If someone goes in and changes the end date of the study, then it instantly is reflected inside the tool. It really depends on how that is set up for the sources that you have. So back in the tool itself, if I had a new book of business that I wanted to upload for April, if I click on the left side here, there's another menu. You can see at the top, these are all the different reports that we have. And at the bottom, there are tool management links. So these are all the different configuration and, you know, initialization settings that I was talking about before. Schedules, these are books of business. So you can see the last one in here is from the 16th of February. If I wanted to add one, I could simply upload this, you know, and choose a file off my laptop or whatever. And it's also easy to delete, to take something out of here. You know, I wanted to model these 5 studies. I've done that. I got what I wanted out of it, and I can just get rid of it so no one's confused by it. So it's really quite easy to update this with fresh book of business data. Let me show you the other management settings in here. So I talked about the kind of organizational hierarchy. So here is, these are the tables where you set up your organization, right? So I can pick my top level organizations, right? ClinOps, Biometrics, Clin Research. The departments underneath those, you know, I put in a department and pick which organization it falls under. And then one more level, the roles. So these are all the roles that I'm going to model with algorithms, and, you know, in which department they fall under. So as I'm filtering and pivoting, they get grouped with the right areas. If I go into the activities link, these are the different activities that we're modeling, right? So we have program level work, the different submissions, startup, in-life, closeout. Again, these can be whatever you want. I can click in here, you know, and change their names at any point in time. And I can change the order in which they happen. So it's flexible to edit this so it's customized to your organization. And then there's the big one. There's the time allocation. So these are the actual algorithm numbers. So if you take a look at this table here, you'll see that there are all of the roles listed on the left and the activities that they work in. So the statistician role only works during 3 of the activities. We have 7 possible in the demo here, but statistician only works during startup, in-life, and closeout. And then if the given study is low, medium, or high complexity, you can see the FTE numbers that we've assigned to these. You know, now again, these are kind of dummy numbers that we're using in here, and the activities don't necessarily match up to real life. I realize that. I've customized this so you can kind of see at a glance exactly what we're doing. But this table is incredibly easy to edit. So if I know that my numbers are wrong and I've come up with a different number I want to use for my statistician, I can simply edit it right here in the table. And I've changed now to half an FTE for that activity, for that role that I'm going to model. So there's no programming here. You're simply, you know, you map out exactly what it is you want to model. You add in your FTE values here, your allocation numbers, and the tool takes care of everything else behind the scenes. It's quite simple to maintain. So that's really kind of the configuration piece here to get the demand projections that I was showing earlier. So there's just one other report that I want to show, the timeline visualization here. So this is a Gantt chart style report of your book of business. So that CSV file I was showing, excuse me, this is the exact same data, but broken down, Gantt style. You can see the program level at the top, and then each of the different activities below it. If I hover over any of them, you get a little pop-up that shows you the start and end. This is something that people kind of routinely ask for as a report style. It's pretty easy to include in here. We already have the data. It's just a matter of creating the view. I can kind of collapse each of these to a study level, so you can see, just at the highest level when a study will start and end. All right. So the other side of the coin here is the capacity planning. So I'm gonna load up that report, and this is what you get. You see the listing of all your employees here on the left by role, and then all of their capacity for the next 12 months that are laid out here. So pretty obviously, you can see that if someone's listed as 100, that's 100%. They are completely allocated. If it goes over 100%, the cell turns red. If it's under, it's yellow. So at a glance, you can see who is over and under allocated for whatever it is they're doing. So what I'm going to do is, again, at the top you have the same kind of filters. I can change the date range that I want to see. I'm going to just show the CRAs, so we're not looking at a giant table of people. So here are all my CRAs laid out. Let's say I want to start managing some capacity for these folks. So I can click into any of these cells and see a little bit more about who I'm talking about. This is May Harrison, right, for April. If I want to manage May's tasks, I get a pop-up here. First line, I want to add a task. So these are all my studies. What is May working on? If I just pick the first one in the list, it's grayed out. So this study actually doesn't even start in April. So that's not a good one to choose. See if we can find one that does. All right, so I picked this one. This has startup going on during this month, and you can see that it has automatically told me how long that startup goes, from April to September. It's kind of pre-populated that field. I have the ability to change it. I can change it, if I only want May to work for 1 month or 3 months or whatever, or I can just leave it for the life of the startup. It also automatically populated the percentage of time that it will take May. So it's 0.5 FTEs, 50% of the time to handle this job. Now if I add task, you can see that it added May to this one study, startup activity, 50%, and there's my date range, April through September. If I close out here, you can see that May is now 50% allocated for those months. Now in September, manage our tasks again. Let's see if we can find that same study. Now you can see in September is where we change over to in-life. So I could still select startup if I wanted to, but it has automatically also added the ability to add the next phase. So in-life goes from September through December. Now this is a little bit higher. This is 85%. Now I'm going to add that again. So May is on this study now for 2 phases. And you can see that there's a month of overlap as well. But with a couple clicks, I've now assigned her to work on this study for almost its entire life. I can do the same thing in December and add for the last activity for closeout. I can go into each of my people and make sure that each of them is allocated, at or about 100% for a good amount of time. For whatever I need to manage for them. So I can go in. I can also. It doesn't have to be study work. I could go in here and let's say I know that Pearl is going to go on vacation, and she's going to go half-time vacation for November and December. I can very quickly add that in. And now I can see if I click on this month that, half time she's working on the study, the other half time she's on paid time off. So it's pretty easy to manage. You can add in training times or work rotations, or maybe your employee isn't 100% employee. You can set that up so they're only a half-time person. And when you hit 50%, they're fully allocated. It's pretty customizable, pretty flexible, and honestly, it's pretty easy to go in and manage these allocations for all of your employees across all of your projected work. So this piece ties to the demands piece that I showed you at the start. You're allocating all your people across the work that you're projecting you're going to do over the next however many months. So if I take a look at the employee list, and this is kind of another one of those initialization settings. If I take a look at this list, you can see here exactly what it is I'm entering. So, I've got the employee, right, their name. I give them a role based on what I'm trying to model. I can add in some other information, right? They could have an employee number or a cost center, or maybe, their state that they work in or their country that they work in. This can be whatever you need to track for your data. I can give them a work time percentage, right? So I can have them be 100% of an FTE or a half time or something else. If I want to indicate that maybe they're a contractor, I can then give them a billing rate, and the tool will calculate based on what I've assigned them in the capacity tool. It'll calculate what that will cost. So I could potentially model, whether it, how much it would cost to, say, completely outsource a study based on various billing rates versus doing it internally and knowing how much it costs to have my people do it. So there's all kinds of different things that you can add in here to make this, very granular and pretty useful. Log me out there. If I go back to my capacity here one more time, again, I can export the image of whatever it is I've reported down to, filter and pivot, change my date range, and of course I have the ability to reset back to the top level view. As well, I can also do this against other books of business. So, the kind of the feature set that I showed at the top level, it's replicated across all these different views, and the menus and the filters are all very, very similar, so that the learning curve to learn how to use the tool is very low. It doesn't take very long before you're fairly proficient in this. So, that's the tool. It is simple to use. It's pretty powerful in what it can give you. Like I said, it can give you most of what very expensive solutions can, but it definitely doesn't cost as much as they do. And with a very small FTE investment, it's pretty easy to run. Once it's configured, someone is simply uploading the data, on some regular basis, and that's it. The tool runs itself. Multiple people can log into the Microsoft environment and create reports that they can use at any point in time. So I guess at this point I will pause and see if there are any questions. Billy?
Great, thanks, Andy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So we received a couple questions. Like I said at the beginning of the presentation, everyone who's attending, please feel free to use the GoToMeeting interface. We'll start with the questions we've received already. So the first question we received is, can we create algorithms and roles specific to our company?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And the answer is absolutely. So everything we've seen here is obviously a demo. If I go into, time allocations management setting here. I can set up a new allocation at any point in time. I just create a new role, create a new activity, and then add in new numbers. Whatever our numbers are that we want to model. I can model anything in here. So as long as it fires off of a study that's in your book of business, as long as it's a role that is doing study work or program level work, we can model it right here. It's very simple to create new roles and create new algorithms based on the work that you're doing. Absolutely.
Great. Next up we have is, can we import timeline data into the resource management tool? We currently use Microsoft Project Server.
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned this a little bit before. The timeline data can be automatically linked. There's a full-featured API behind the scenes of the tool. That is actually scheduled. We have a roadmap for tool development. At the moment, that's not part of the the base package. That's something that we would have to set up for you kind of outside of the tool, outside of the normal installation of the tool. It will be part of the upcoming feature set that we're adding. I have a slide. Let me go back to my slides for a second with our roadmap on it here. So you can see that the tool itself is still in development. I mean, it's still living. We take input from our current clients, things they'd like to see, things they would be neat to see, and we kind of prioritize it based on the functionality, how difficult it is to program. We don't want this to be a giant, heavy system, like what is currently available. We want to keep it light. We want to keep it functional and easy to learn. So we're balancing all of that with what we're going to create here. But in the roadmap, you can see in May, we're talking about a copy previous month button. It's a pretty useful feature to have. Side-by-side headcount projection. So you can add your headcount to the demand projection graph. So you can specifically see your headcount overlaid with what you're projecting to need. Some localization options. This might be things translated in other languages, different character sets for other languages. Some of these are kind of technical behind the scenes roadmap updates. What we're talking about here is full Microsoft Project integration is coming in November. So that will become a default out-of-the-box option in November. In the interim, it's definitely available. It's just not something that comes out of the box. But you can see some of our other roadmap features that are on the way. And again, these are based on requests from current clients and honestly from questions in meetings like this. People ask the same thing over and over. We get the hints. We try and add it to the roadmap.
Great. Next question we have is, we don't have CTMS where we list our studies with milestones. What do you recommend for this?
Well, we also have a kind of a sibling tool, a CTMS Lite tool that we have developed and also sell through Intrinsic. It has the same kind of feeling that this one does. It's it's cloud-based. It's light in the sense that it doesn't have the huge overhead to run. It's pretty heavily featured. I mean, you get most of what you get out of a giant CTMS system that you would buy somewhere else. There are so many CTMS options out there. We've seen pretty much all of them. If you had a specific question about one, someone would be happy to talk to you about our experience with it, or what we might recommend for your specific situation. I would just recommend reaching out to us. We'd be happy to answer a specific question.
All right, next up we received a question that says, the application space of resource management overlaps the functionality in project and program management tools, for example, MS Project and MS Server. What do you see as the three most important resource management features that aren't available in MS Project?
Well, the ability to kind of run your studies through algorithms. I mean, that's just not there in Project. It's at a very high level. It's pretty simple to do. It's multiplication, right? You're checking whether something is firing, and you're multiplying by whatever your factor is. But kind of keeping track of that over time is difficult, and the tool here does a pretty good job, I think, of kind of marrying the output from something like Project to the output from your algorithms. They do different things, and so as far as the three most important things, modeling the algorithms is one. I think from the capacity perspective, Microsoft Project really doesn't get down to the named resource level. So this is kind of tying in the ability to get down to this employee level. You might have seen in the roadmap we have the ability, or we're looking at the ability to add time tracking information here. So actual, how many hours these people have reported they've worked on things, then held up against what you projected they would need to work, held up against how you assign them, how you plan for them over the months. That's something that's very interesting that you can't really get out of, strictly out of Project.
All right, great. And then I think this is the last question we received so far. So if we don't receive any more, we will end it out after this. We have data from CTMS, Financial Systems, and Microsoft Project Server. Could we integrate this data with the resource management data?
Yeah. So the answer is yes. You definitely can. And in the roadmap here, you can see a number of those points that were just mentioned being added in here. So, we're talking about project integration in November. We're talking about time tracking coming in the future as well. Demand versus cost and capacity cost visualization. So the answer is yes. I mean, with the API behind the scenes built in the cloud like this, we can connect to anything. Anything that has the ability to output data, we can absolutely connect to and input. The question would be whether there's anything to tie that to. So, with Microsoft Project and actuals, clearly that has an overlap that you would want to see inside the tool. So those are kind of obvious ones that we want to connect to. CTMS has kind of another obvious one that we could connect to. There might be more that would not be so obvious, but because we have employees in here, maybe there's employee systems and employee data that you might want to marry to this somehow. But bigger picture, the answer is absolutely. It was designed with that kind of data connection in mind. So anything that you have that can output data, we can probably input it in here and generate some kind of visualization that might be useful.
All right, great. We have received another question, so let's continue. Do companies utilize this for studies only? Have you worked with organizations that use it for traditional project management and resource allocation with multiple variables?
Yeah, so we have seen this for not just for studies. You can see in the demo here we have a couple other domains, right? We have regulatory affairs, we have manufacturing. You could really use the tool for anything that has a similar structure to the study where you have different roles that fire off of different activities or events. You know, if it can be modeled in that way, then it kind of fits the mold of the tool. So it doesn't have to be studies, absolutely not. You know, and we have clients that have asked for regulatory affairs in particular, a slightly different setup than just the study-based one that you saw today. The second part of that about multivariables is something that we're interested in working on. So I'm assuming the multivariables would be not just a date range, but say, you know, number of sites, number of patients, number of visits, that kind of thing. We realize that many of the algorithms currently in a full feature environment can accommodate that. That's kind of another level here that we haven't gotten to, just because it increases the complexity of the tool a lot. So we have, you know, in our time allocations, we have 3 different complexities that we kind of by default use, right? Low, medium, high. Unless it's specified otherwise, everything fires off of medium. But you could set up some complexity logic, and there's a complexity rules page in here where you would do that. You know, if your study is an oncology study, it's not medium, it's high. Or if your study is active in Japan, it's you know, it's a high complexity study because it's more difficult to run for some reason. You know, that's not necessarily multivariable specifically. You know, it's not using number of patients as a factor, but you could set up similar logic where if number of patients is greater than 50 or 200 or something, it becomes a high complexity study. We've talked about adding that kind of algorithm to the tool. Like I said, it's a kind of another level of development that would make it more complex than what we were originally thinking. If it's something you're interested in, I would absolutely recommend you reach out and talk to us specifically about it. You know, functionally, it's obviously possible. Again, it's just multiplication, but it would have to be factored. Like development time would have to be factored in, and as well as you know, how many other clients would actually be interested in using it. It's a good question, though.
All right, great. Well, that seems to be everything we've received today. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining. We will be posting this webinar online, and I'll send out an email notifying everyone it's up. So if you enjoyed the content, know anyone else in your workplace or your social network who might benefit from seeing it, please share it. If anyone is interested in learning more about the work we do with the resource tool or any of our other areas, please reach out to myself or Andy. And again, thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.